What is up, everyone? I'm Jeff London. This is the Mediocre Alaskan Podcast, where we are intolerant of weak-minded attitudes that keep people from pursuing new and exciting things in the areas of fitness, outdoors, and general lifestyle. Have the Harrison Gottschling re-recording of his ram hunt in the interior Alaska. Great story, epic story of other hunters and crazy shots and crazy weather. So that's all coming up. Make sure you check out the mediocrealaskan.com for content. Also check out the Mediocre Alaskan Instagram page, or you can follow me, Alaska Lund, on Instagram, Facebook, and that'll do it. The introduction. Here we go, episode 58, Dall Sheep in Interior Alaska with Harrison Gottschling. All right, Harrison, take two. Sorry about last time and getting the sound all messed up, but let's hear that ram story again.
Yeah, stupid technology always taking over. Well, I guess I'll just, pick up kind of early in the mid-season. Me and a friend of mine, we had picked an area where we were planning on walking in. I had gone sheep hunting the year before with no success. We saw a couple sheep, but that was it, nothing legal, in one area of the same general area that we were hunting. And we decided to go and scout mid-July, maybe early July, I think, into a different area, and it took us all day to kind of get into where we were planning on hunting, and we planned out everything in these maps and tried to find where we were going to go. We walked about 6 or so miles in one direction, and we were met with like a 70-foot waterfall that kind of turned us around, and we decided, well, let's see if we can't go up another way and up and over these draws and over this mountain here and see if maybe this is a viable area to go into. And after, 7 hours of bushwhacking up through alders, only to be really going like a couple miles, it just took forever, but it was super steep. We got to an area where we were looking at the base of this mountain, and we were thinking to ourselves like, oh man, we got wives and kids at home, and nothing's worth trying to hump up over this mountain range. Right. Because there's, it's only a sheep. It's not like life or death or anything. Yeah. So we were kind of at a standstill in that regard. We didn't really know what we were going to do. So after talking to a couple friends of mine who had been in that area years and years and years ago, back in the 80s and 90s, he told me about another area that we didn't get a chance to go walk around and hike before the season. But when the season started, we were able to go in there. And what was really nice is that we had kind of found a trail kind of by accident. We had a general idea of where we were going to park and what direction we were going to walk. But, we had thought one thing, and then we saw a trail that looked very slightly used, but it was actually really well beaten. Just the entrance was kind of brushed over as to kind of deter people away from that. But that kind of brought us up above the tree line within just a couple hours, and really not a lot of bushwhacking at all. And it was really nice. And, once we got up to the top of this draw and started looking into this one drainage that just looked fantastic, it just didn't hold anything. So we bonsai'd down to the basin and crashed out for the night. Woke up and, we had plans that we were going to hump up over this little glaciated area into what we thought was going to be the end-all be-all area of where we were going to see sheep. So the next day we wake up and we hike probably 5 or 6 more miles, and we get on top of this kind of big mountain saddle that has like a really small area that you can kind of, it's like almost like you're threading the needle to go along through this chute. And we're just socked in with wind and fog and a little bit of sideways rain, and we couldn't see where we were going. So we were just like looking back at our GPS and our maps and GPS back and forth. And we set up a tent in the fog, and we have no idea where we were. And so we hung out in the tent for a few hours, took a little nap, woke up later in the evening. It cleared up pretty well, so we were able to go around and glass a few points and stuff like that. And we spent the rest of that night, probably 4 or 5 hours, just hiking a little bit around and trying to see if we could spot sheep. And we get to this one area where it's like a kind of a knife's ridge, but it's a little flat right on top. We post up and we're glass, and we see 3 different bands of, are they considered bands if they're lambs and ewes? I don't know. But, so we see 3 different groups of lambs and ewes, and then they're all pretty far away, and we can tell, there's nothing, no rams or anything in them. But then we look into an area that we weren't expecting to look at, and we see rams about 6 miles away as the crow flies. And so it was getting pretty late towards the evening, and those were the only rams that we knew that we could see. And the only way we could tell they were rams was because they like skylined up on top of this ridge, and you could just see big dark bases, but that's it. And so we were like, well, we haven't seen anything else in this drainage, so I guess tomorrow morning we'll just wake up bright and early and just go that way as best we can. And so that's what we do. The next morning we wake up, we hike about 13 miles. This is opening morning by then. We were able to, get in a couple days early, but it still wasn't enough. So we make it about 13 miles, and we take a little break because the rain is starting to come in. So we decide build our tent, wait for an hour or two, see if we can take like a little power nap, wake up, and then head out from there. Because we think that we're like way back in the sticks. No one's going to be back here. No one's crazy enough to walk back here. And after we wake up, we start hiking towards the ridgeline where we had seen the sheep last night. And we see 2 people skylined on this ridge. And we're thinking like, what in the world? Where did those people come from? Did they pass us? Like there must be another way to get in here.
And this is an over the counter, right? This isn't.
This is an over the counter tag. So it's just a walk-in only area, non-motorized. And, so we're kind of stunned that there's people there. And so we're pretty angry that it's like, oh man, our one plan that we had, we thought this was like an ace in the hole, that someone's there and someone's going to go after those sheep that we were going to go after. And we were frustrated and talking to ourselves, and we kind of sat down and we're thinking about what we're going to do next. And we didn't even realize that we were about 50 to 100 yards away from a group of 3 more hunters. And so we go and we talk to the group of 3 older hunters, and they're like in their 60s, and we're like 25-ish miles back. So we're quite a ways back already. And we talked to them and compared maps and everything and saw where they came in from, and they saw where we came in from. And they were like, oh yeah, we were chasing this band of sheep, and it was the same band that we were after. And they were like, yeah, that there's some guy up there who shot the only legal one in the group. It was like a band of like 5 or 6 rams, and apparently there was only one legal one. And so we were just like, oh man, what a bummer. Like 2 different people, or 3 different groups of people were going after pretty much one legal ram. And so we talked to them, and they just, they tell us where they're going, and we're like, okay, well, we won't go the direction that you guys are going to go. We'll keep going deeper into this drainage. And so
is it hard to make that call to go back deeper, because you've already gone back so far, and then it's, your perfect plan has been ruined by 2 other groups of people, and someone else got one. At this point, were you just going through the motions, or what was your emotional state at this point?
Well, the emotions of it, I mean, we were definitely frustrated. This was my partner's first sheep hunt, and this was my first, I call it real sheep hunt, because the other one that I did was only like maybe 10 or 15, probably like 20 miles tops for a round trip, and we only saw 2 sheep, and we didn't really know what we were looking for. We didn't know what we were doing. But this year I had a little bit of an idea, so it's like, well, we're back here, so there's no reason to not stay back here, because we didn't see anything where we came from, and we thought that was going to be the hot ticket item. So we're like, well, let's just go through the motions up here. Let's sit down, spend the evening glassing, see if we come across anything, and then, we'll make the decision later tonight as to what we're going to do. So we walk in the direction that we were originally going to go, and we end up running into the hunter who had shot the ram that we were after, and he was some guy from Pennsylvania who was being guided. And we were talking to them for a little bit, and the guide was keeping his cards close to his chest. I was asking him, like, what direction did you come in from? Oh,
somewhere over there.
Yeah. And he was like, oh, I don't even know what the names of the drainages are called here. And it's like, oh, okay, whatever. Right. You're not going to tell me, that's fine. No problem with that. Yeah. But so we part ways, and he's trying to pawn off all his food. He's like, oh, I planned for 10 days and we got 10 extra days worth of food. Take my food. And so we got some extra beef jerky. That was definitely nice. That was a morale booster, since I didn't bring anything other than freeze-dried stuff and stuff flavored of peanut butter. But so we walk a little bit farther, probably a quarter mile past where we had talked to the hunter and the guide, and we just set up on this little rock and we're glassing around, and within 45 minutes, we see 4 separate bands of sheep, and they're all bands of rams. And so we went from super low to really high really quickly, and we were just beyond excited that we saw all these sheep. And there was one that my friend had seen with his bare eyes across the drainage, and I put the spotting scope on him, and he was immediately legal. He was probably like 3-4 miles away, but he was just like broad as daylight, no doubt about it. Comes up way past full curl, like he's a bruiser. And so we're jumping up and down. We're excited and making game plans and stuff, ready to go for the next day. And so we walk across the drainage past a creek and kind of camp a little bit removed, but at the base of the drainage, that the little draw that we saw the legal sheep. And so our plan is in the next morning to kind of skirt around the edge of this little basin that he's in, and then see if we can't get at least level with him, if not above him. And so the next morning, the wind is really not in our favor. And we were kind of hot-headed and trying to push it, didn't want to be patient. We didn't want to waste the whole morning. So we decided, we'll just push up real slowly anyways. We'll be on the outskirts. Even though the wind's at our back, it's kind of blowing outwards towards the drainage and everything. And we're taking our time, trying to be real sneaky, crawling on our hands and feet and stuff, or hands and knees. And when we get to the top, into a clearing where we can see, there's the sheep that we saw that was legal and about 6 other non-legal rams, but they're like 700 yards away, walking away from us. So it's like, oh man, they busted us. Dang it. And, there's no chasing them because they're just going higher and the clouds are really low and they're just walking right into the clouds. And so we wait there for probably 20, 30 minutes to see if they're going to pop back down below the clouds or anything. And of course, we never see them again. Even throughout the entire hunt, we never see him again. And so we decide, well, if we keep going up, there's like a knife's edge that follows along to the drainage that's farther east that we had seen some rams even the night before too. So we're like, let's just go up and around and make a big loop, and we'll try and put a stalk on the other sheep if they're still there, and we'll see what happens. So, we just keep climbing and climbing and climbing. I think our camp was at like 3,500 feet, and we end up getting up to 6,000 to 6,100 feet. So what's your comfort shoot level? Did you have an idea about yardage that you were trying to get close to, or was it just a matter of, hoping it's as short as possible, or did you have a furthest distance in your mind as you were trying to put this stock on?
After years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. They cut out the cost of retail stores and pass those sweet savings directly to you. For anyone who hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. I was hesitant about having to get a new phone and a new phone number, but with Mint, You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone and your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or for a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and to get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That is mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
Well, of course, I had hoped that everything is about 100 yards or even shorter. That'd be awesome. And I personally don't really practice at long distances. I, sighted my rifle at 200 and, that's it for me. Like, I shoot the same bullets consistently. So on the box, it tells you if you zero for 200, it'll be like 1.5 inches high at 100. It'll be 6 inches low at 300 or so on and so forth. And so I kind of just go off that and just shoot the same ammo consistently. But I didn't really have any particular range in mind. I just hoped that it would be shorter rather than longer. And so 600 is way too far. I'm not even going to try and shoot a barn that far away type of deal. So we climb up to 6,000 feet and we go along this knife's edge for a couple miles up and over this next little mountain. And we start to go down and it opens up and we kind of sit down and wait for the fog or all the clouds to kind of clear up and everything. And eventually they do. And we try and put a stalk on another group of sheep. And I don't quite remember who told me this, but there's a good saying where they say, never put your pack down. And people say that for a good reason. And we probably put on a 1 mile stalk trying to go approach these sheep that we think that are below us. So we go about a mile down just to keep thinking like they're going to be right over that. They're going to be right over this. They're going to be right over this next rock. So we just kept pushing and pushing. Then we turn around and we're like, crap, we're a mile away from our bags. And now we got to walk all that way back uphill just to get our bags, just to go back downhill. And, was a nice learning lesson right there of when people say don't drop your bags, it's for a good reason.
Yeah.
And so we get back down to the base of the main valley that we're in after not seeing any sheep. While we were up there, though, we had glassed across the valley and seen 3 separate bands of sheep on the opposite side, of course. There was a couple real marginal sheep that were like may have been full curl, like just right at full curl. But there was nothing that was obviously full curl. So we were just going to make our way back to the original spot where we had started to make our stalk and make a game plan and try and get closer to the sheep on the other side of the valley to verify if they were legal or not later in the night. But so we start hiking back and we enter it, and we're about a mile away from our camp, and this is about 8:30 at night now after doing, I think, 7 or 8 miles that day. And when we start to cross this rock field, we start to set up, and we're going to set up in glass and eat a little bit of food and just kind of relax. And as we're unloading our bags, getting the tripod out, getting the spotting scope out, I look to my left, and this is like at the valley floor. It's still 3,500 feet or so. So, I mean, it's still good elevation, but nowhere where you'd normally find sheep. And I look to my left, and there's a ram just hanging out by himself. And so I flip and I tell my partner, like, oh, get down, there's a sheep right there. And of course, right there is 350 yards away, but within like 500 or 600 yards, like that's right there pretty much. And so he doesn't see us right away. And so I kind of stand up to see if there's any more sheep below him. And about 60 or 70 yards below him, there's 3 more sheep. None of them are legal. And so I stand up just a little bit higher, and I see there's a 4th or a 5th total sheep below them all. and he's legal. And so I'm flipping out, trying to get my rifle out. And my friend brought in a really nice video camera to record the whole hunt and everything, to kind of make like a little film about it and stuff. And so he gets his camera on the tripod, and I'm, trying to scramble left and right around him, trying to get a good rest. And by moving around so much, the very top sheep, who's not legal, sees us, and he's like looking right at us, and he knows where we are. And so he's looking at us, and he's looking down at the lead ram and us and the big ram, us and the other ram, back and forth, trying to figure out what to do, because they kind of go off of whatever the big ram's going to do. So through this whole time, the big ram never sees us. And so I finally get a rest down, and I'm trying to calm down because my heart is beating out of my chest at this point. And so I get a rest, and the ram his butt is facing towards me. Like he's perfectly facing away from me, just grazing, minding his own business, no big deal. And so I am calm by this point, and then he starts to turn broadside, and then another ram walks right in front of him, and he's like stays directly perfectly in front of him for about 2 minutes, and they're just kind of walking side by side, grazing, walks a few more steps, and man, that was the longest 2 minutes of my life. But
I bet.
After that happened, the smaller ram walks away, and the big ram is nice and broadside and presents himself, and he's not moving. And I squeeze the trigger, and off goes the shot, and nothing happens. The shot goes off, but I couldn't tell if I hit the ram or anything, but the ram just stands at attention, so I obviously didn't hit him. I was like, okay. So I load in another one, squeeze it off, and then I notice in front of me that after the second shot, a little bit of earth came up in front of me. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, did I shoot the ground twice in front of me? And so I'm flipping out, and by this time, the sheep start running sideways away from us. So I grab a couple rocks real quick and put them on top of each other to get my gun off of the ground, and I put in a third round. And by this time, the main ram's about 400 yards away from me. And so he's still running. And so when I'm aiming, I'm real calm, and I aim about 3 or 4 feet in front of him and about a foot over his head, maybe 2 feet over his head. And I just squeeze off the shot real nice. And in hindsight, I probably should not have taken that shot, especially since I don't practice at those distances or anything. I mean, that's, irresponsible shot if anyone would ever call it. And I will definitely admit that I probably should not have taken that shot. But I did, and I saw through my scope that I broke his front leg. I didn't see blood, but he definitely had a shattered front leg and was only running with one front leg. So I was like, okay, that slows him down. Let's get closer and seal the deal. And I'm trying to throw all my crap in my bag as fast as I can, and so is my partner. And, we've walked like 7 or 8 miles that day, and I'm tired. And it's like almost 9 p.m. at this point. So it's getting a little bit dark and a little bit hazy. And my friend has longer legs than I do, so each step he takes, I have to take 2 to keep up with him. And he's like pushing hard to get closer. And I'm telling him, like, you got to slow down. Like, I can't keep this up. It's late. I'm tired. And if I'm going to have to chase this thing, I can't keep pushing like this. So we slow down, and, we walk. We try and go farther sideways so we can like make a loop around them and try and get above him to find him, because he disappears into these rock piles. We can't see him right away. But the other sheep are still there kind of waiting for him. So that was a good sign. So we make our way up and around, and we make our way to him, and we ended up being above him, and he was about 100 to 150 yards from us. And this is like a really steep shot downwards, like more than 45 degrees down. And so I aim kind of dead center right for him, and I shoot just over his back. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is just turning into a fiasco, chasing this thing around and trying to put bullets in him. And I'm missing him 3 times now. And so he runs into this little patch of alders, about 50 yards farther than what he was already at. And I see him bed down in these alders. So I'm like, okay, just got to get really close, get within 50 yards, shoot it, and end this. Just get on to the next chapter. And, it's getting darker and darker every minute. So we kind of make our way down to him. I get within like 20 yards of him. I can see his silhouette through these alders, but he can't see me. And he's bedded down because his front arm's broken. And so I aim my gun and kind of ready it and point it at him. And I start to walk around into a little opening through the bushes. He stands up, sees me, and then spins around and runs about another 20 yards into a nice clearing. And then he stops and looks back. I shoot one more time, and that's it. And then by that time, man, it was really frustrating and embarrassing for me, and I was really embarrassed for my partner, and I felt extremely bad for the sheep, because to put like an animal through that, I've never had an animal that has had to go through that kind of stress before it died when I was shooting at it. And so it was an extremely emotional time, and man, I broke down, and like the emotion just came over me, and I was just sobbing for a couple minutes. I just could not believe that I had just shot a ram and it's dead, and it's getting darker, and putting it through that horrible few moments of its life and everything. And whenever I finally,
it's important to, I think, to own up to it, because if the more you hunt, the more that's going to happen at some point. And some people will post pictures of how their hunt went perfect, and you look at where the blood is, and you think, where did you shoot that thing? And so it was beautiful. Yeah, everything worked out great. And you're like, based on what I'm seeing here, it wasn't all just perfect. So I think it's, all hunters at some point, obviously, like you said, you want it to be as clean a kill as possible. But sometimes it just doesn't happen. And, you want it to be something, and it's not. But I think part of understanding what hunting is taking ownership of that and not pretending that you've never either missed or put a shot where it wasn't supposed to go. I think that's.
I think it's important that people own up to that too, and the importance of practicing with your rifle. That not just going and sighting it in, but like shooting multiple different times throughout the year, and shooting from different positions, and trying to be on top of being as good of a marksman as you possibly can, especially if you're going to be walking upwards of 40 miles. Which is how many miles we walked before we even shot the ram. If you're going to go all that way, you might as well check off all your boxes about being proficient. Because people will train hiking for months with packs, with weight up and down hills, and, lifting weights every morning 2-3 times a week, or running however many times you need to. But, shooting, people, I notice that some people don't shoot at all except for whenever they're pointing their gun at their animals. And, I'm definitely guilty of that too, but after running into this, I've definitely learned my lesson that I got to kind of up the game up in marksmanship to really kind of be a proficient hunter. Yeah. And so
even then, you're a proficient hunter, but there's still, conditions could happen. You bump the scope, it's the best you can do is prepare yourself for it. And I haven't been hunting a long time, and I've had a couple of shots that weren't ideal. But yeah, it's just preparing yourself as much as possible, knowing that there could be chaos that ensues.
Absolutely, yeah. And so you
got it down. It's dark. You had some relieving of emotions, and now you're cutting this thing up by headlamp. Is that right?
Oh yeah, because it's like 9:30, almost 10 o'clock now, and it's not quite pitch black yet, but it's getting dark. So we get headlamps on, and it starts raining, of course, as soon as the ram's on the ground. And it's not raining hard, but it's raining enough to get everything soaked. So I really wanted to get a shoulder mount, but I had shot right behind the shoulder and out the front of the chest, and there was like a cantaloupe-sized hole right in his chest. And I just thought, well, screw it. I'll just do a Euro mount. I don't want to have to worry about a taxidermist patching it up or anything, so I'm not going to worry about the hide. And so we start cutting it up and taking our time, and I try and take care of the meat as much as I can in the field, so I don't have to do it at home. And so it didn't take us it took us until almost 3 a.m. until we were done preparing all the meat, making it real nice, putting it in game bags, covering it up in contractor bags so it doesn't get soaking wet, and throwing it in our bags and everything. And then we start hiking back towards our camp. But at this point, we're so tired. We've been up for 20 hours or something like that. And, with kind of almost no breaks during that time. And, if you start butchering game, like your back start hurting from hunching over with a knife and everything. And of course I cut myself. And so I'm bleeding, trying to manage my thumb. And now we got to hike back a mile in the rain at 3:30 in the morning through a patch of woods that we've never gone through to get back to our camp. So we're like, oh shit, where are we? We keep looking back to our GPS. It's like you're a quarter mile away from your camp. You're 600 yards. You're 5, 4, 3, 2, 100 yards. And we're like looking around at like 50 yards, like where the hell's our tent kind of deal. And we eventually find it and make some food and just pass out. And that was the end of a very long night. And so the next morning we wake up and luckily all our meat is still exactly where we put it. No bears came and got it or nothing in the night. And it wasn't raining in the morning, which is great. And so we start packing everything up, loading all of our gear, and then a big gust of wind hits our tent and just snaps one of the poles in half.
Oh, yikes.
And so we're like, oh, shit. Well, at least we're getting out of here. We don't have to worry about another 4 or 5 nights in this broken tent. We can just make our way out, maybe have to use it once, maybe twice again on the way before we get back to the truck. And so throughout the rest of the day, the wind just keeps getting worse and worse. And so we're hiking back and with about 90 to 100 pounds on our back, which is a first for me because, for one, this is like my first real backpack hunt. I had never lived out of my backpack for more than a couple days. And even then I had access to a truck that I could kind of throw everything in. So this was kind of like my first real backcountry hunt. And this is my first time that I ever had to pack out an animal. So putting on 90 to 100 pounds, it's really difficult, but kind of like when you just start hiking into sheep country, like the third day, you feel great. It's the same kind of thing with that heavy a weight. Like after the first day, your body gets used to it, and it's annoying, but it's not as hard as it is at the very beginning. And so we're kind of hiking back. We make it about 5 or 6 miles, and the wind just starts to pick up really bad. And we're like getting like these 40 to 60 mile an hour gusts to where you're having to like widen your stance and stand out with your trekking poles so you don't get blown over. Like you can't keep walking in this wind, and it's just kicking our butts. And we eventually make it to our first camp spot, and we have to like position ourselves in between a bunch of rocks and alders, and we got to like splint up the tent pole and everything, and like use our trekking poles to kind of brace the rest of the tent throughout the night, because it's still really gusty and it's still raining like crazy through the whole day. And we deal with that. And then the next day it clears up and it's actually really nice out. And I think we made it 9 miles the first day for the pack out. And then the second day we had about 10 miles to go, but this is the one that we had to like gain and lose 3,000 or 4,000 feet of elevation. So it was just a really long slog of taking one small step at a time, just going up. So it's just not burning yourself out. It just felt like it took forever. And then we were about a quarter mile from our trailhead that we had come out of, the first day. And we're like, let's just kind of beeline towards the trail. That's fine. We might have to go through a little bit of alders, but it shouldn't be too bad. And boy, that was a mistake. We should have just stayed high. And, we were fighting alders for a quarter mile, and it doesn't sound a quarter mile is like, oh, whatever, who cares? But it's like, if you're like taking 2 or 3 steps without having to really change or push sticks out of your way, like that's a victory. So a quarter mile, it's like I was fighting it because my rifle was sticking up and the horns were catching everything. And I was like throwing my whole body weight through these alders trying to just get through, because I was just getting so tired, and I had lost a water bottle that had all my water in it. So we were about 2 or 3 miles away from the truck at that point still. And when we finally got back to the trail, and like I was just getting so beat up and tired. And by the time that we got back to the trail, it was close to 10. It was about 11 p.m. when we got back to the truck. So it was like pitch black again when we get back to the truck finally. And, we just drop our packs and load up the meat. Like we were going to do like a little recording on his video camera about like, oh, we made it back to the truck. Yay, we're so happy. But it's like I was just so beaten down and physically exhausted that I couldn't really do much. I just told my partner, like, I just have to go to bed right now. Like I just got to climb in the truck and just pass out for like an hour before I can really function. So when we get back to the truck, I drank like a bottle and a half of water because I was out of water. And that was a mistake because about 20 minutes into my nap, I wake up real abruptly and I tell my partner when we're driving back towards home, like, you got to stop the truck. So he stops the truck. I get out and I throw up like all the water that I just drank. And it was just kind of ridiculous. But, it just shows like how far I ended up actually pushing myself physically to get back to the truck in one night or in 2 nights. And, but yeah, I mean, we made it back to a big gas station and we had a little bit of food and got to buy a Gatorade or two and just sip on that and kind of replenish yourself. And then we made it back. We had to sleep in the truck just for a few hours, and then we could just carry on the next morning and just drive back home. But yeah, that was the hunt. And then I got home and processed the sheep by myself and got it all wrapped and everything. And, I had some help from my partner, and my wife and my kid were helping out grinding some meat and wrapping it up. But yeah, it was awesome. Just every part of it. Like as soon as I was back home, and it had felt like the hunt was a lifetime ago, and I just wanted nothing more than to just leave home and go right back out there just to chase another sheep.
There's nothing really about what you described that makes it sound like a traditional sort of fun. So what is it about, and this is the unanswerable question that all hunters kind of have to figure out, is what does make that fun? If the entire story is about misery and about, throwing up or weather, or how does that make that fun, and why does it make you want to go back out there again?
That's a really good question. For me, just personally, just being out there and the only thing you're thinking about is like, I wonder if this mountain range, if I get on top of this, if it'll give me a clear view of that drainage, because that looks like it'd be pretty awesome country for sheep to live in. You're only thinking about like, okay, what gear am I going to use? Like, should I wear my long johns or not in the morning when I start hiking? Or, you're not thinking about like, what am I going to do at work? What am I going to do at home? It's just about, you're just out in the world that these sheep live in year round, and you're there for like 10 days if you're there for a long time. Mm-hmm. And, we were only out there from beginning to end only 6 days. And just over those 6 days, it was just like nothing else mattered besides being out there and to get a sheep, and that's it. And so to get out there, it was just, and to see kind of after the fact that it's like, yeah, it sucked, but I did it. Like I conquered those, what I thought may have been physical limitations, and that I'm actually capable of packing 100 pounds, almost 20 miles up and down thousands of feet of elevation. Like, yeah, dude, I'm unstoppable. I want to do it again. I just want to go look at more sheep.
I think that we're all descended from people who used to have, that was just the requirement for survival. And I think now in modern society, it's been so removed and our lives are so cushioned and so easy and so nerf, to the point where if you live in an urban setting, you don't think that any of this exists anymore. There's no need for it anymore. You can go get your grass-fed food at the store, or you can not eat meat because it's not socially acceptable anymore. And so you're ignoring part of the primal urge, desire, the part that's in our DNA that survived all that. I think giving into that and looking at that and challenging yourself, I think that's an important thing. And I think it's a real thing when you're going out there and you're looking for for meat for yourself and you're providing for yourself and you're not outsourcing that to whoever is growing the meat and processing the meat, killing the meat and shipping the meat, you're not doing extreme sport. There's nothing against extreme sports, but what is the result? What do you get from that? If you go skydiving, you jumped out of a plane and then you got a rush, you got a thrill, but just the level of intensity of going out there and seeing what you're made of and understanding that you're capable of so much more and going out there and providing for yourself. I think it's a very important thing that's lacking in our society. And I think that's why we have some of the problems that we do with, people in their purpose and their, they don't feel like they've done anything. And not that you're going to, feel way better about yourself, but it's going to awaken something inside of you. You go hunting, you go get your own meat, you go hike a mountain and go through one of those experiences. You're going to feel a lot more in control and a lot more ready for other challenges in your life than if you were to just sit around and sip coffee at the coffee shop down the street.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really couldn't agree more that, it's not so much about, to me, it's not about really killing the animal at all. It's about getting out amongst nature to be able to connect with the world around you. It's like, because nowadays most people have desk jobs, not most, but a lot of people have desk jobs, and, a lot of people don't exercise at all or do anything that's uncomfortable, or like people don't like to be uncomfortable, whether it's like pushing yourself physically, even pushing yourself like mentally, like that's not comfortable. But a lot of times the greatest reward is personal reward for you, just to know that, yes, I can do this. Like I can conquer whatever comes in front of me. And that's what I like about it is, it's awesome to provide for my family. Like I'm fortunate enough that I don't have to go hunting. I could afford to buy meat at the store, but I have a very unique opportunity being an Alaskan resident and living here and growing up here all my life that I'm familiar enough with it that I can go out, a couple times a season and almost every time come home with some kind of animal to bring home. That doesn't have to be a moose. It doesn't have to be a caribou. It could be some grouse or some rabbits. And, my family loves it and I love it. And, there's kind of nothing to me that's more satisfying than to know that, you can go out there and connect with nature and be successful out there and bring home food for your family. Like it's just a fantastic feeling.
If someone is listening and they drew a tag or they're looking at doing a sheep hunt up there, what would be one or two insights that you would provide, either for what you take to eat, indispensable bits of gear, any sort of insight that you would provide?
So some insight that I would stress is that, for one, you want to keep all of your equipment as dry as possible. You never want to get your sleeping bag or, your main clothes or insulating layers wet. Just pony up and buy dry bags and you'll never, it's that buy once, cry once type of deal, instead of buying multiple times or multiple things. And do your homework about where you're going and the kind of terrain you're going to be in. Just kind of have an idea of like where you're going. Don't rely on, if you're going on a guide, for him to have all the answers. Like kind of study a little bit, ask your guide questions, or, if you're doing it, plan on doing it by yourself, ask as many people questions as you can about, hey, I got this tag. Where did you go? Will you point me in the right direction? That type of thing. And many people are more than happy to help out, because a lot of the sheep tags, they're so low chance draws, sometimes 1%, that people who have drawn it and been successful in the past don't have any problem sharing the info, because there's maybe only going to be 50 people a year that shoot it, that draw the tag, and then even less people will take an animal. So people are usually have loose lips, so ask around, just get as much info about the area that you plan on hunting as possible. As for food, I mean, it's pretty easy to just say, like, just go mountain house and get cheapo food. But for me, I like having a little bit of comfort food. So I brought cheese, and that was kind of a game changer. Like every day, instead of eating like crappy candy bars and trail mix, to actually have something that had some fats in it, like cheese, was awesome at the end of the day. Or just like a really nice pick-me-up.
It's beginning of September now. What's next on the list? You got the weather changing up there, I'm sure already. What's
the leaves.
What do the next months look like?
The leaves are starting to turn yellow pretty good right now. Over the past week, it's been changing quite a bit. I drew a archery cow moose tag for the Fairbanks management area, so I get to hunt in town with my bow, and so I'm really looking forward to that. I've chased a couple moose already since September 1st. Of course, nothing successful yet, but I have my recurve, and I'm just really looking forward to getting out there and chasing some moose and hopefully make something happen. But my tag is good for 3 months, so I have a really wide window. Moose season around here is for bull moose, it's like September 1st to September 20th. But my cow archery moose tag is good from September 1st to November 25th or 26th. So, it's a long time that I get to chase moose.
Nice.
What do you got going on? I saw that you shot a deer not too long ago. Is that what happened?
Yeah, I got one not too long after opening day. It was up in the Alpine. I love the Alpine down here. It's so much different. You don't have the huge mountain ranges that you have in the interior. So Southeast Alaska is just all a bunch of islands. So you have a couple tall peaks per range on the islands, but nothing at all like that. So you can get up and you can day hunt some Alpine if you get up really, really early. But yeah, I was just thinking about that for this weekend. There's looking at getting a black bear and then deer, and partly for the black bear, if something in the Alpine where they've been eating berries, so they taste a little bit better than also as like a predator thing. There's been a ton of black bears in some of the areas where I like to hunt deer. So the kind of 2-for-1 there, clear out some predation, and then especially with the salmon hasn't been super good this year, and so you got to wonder what the bears have been eating outside of bears, if they've been really eating on the fawns. So bear, deer, and then I got a buddy that was up in the Unit 20 area who just got a moose, and so I'm looking at next year and I'm thinking moose and caribou and all those big interior hunts looking pretty nice. I should start saving for them.
Yeah, there's definitely a ton of area to land, or like there's a ton of area up in just Unit 20 alone to hunt moose and caribou. It's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, it's nice being on the road system. He lives in Anchorage, and so he bombs out there, and some of the stuff you can do kind of over the weekend. But if you make a long weekend, you can try to make a move on some of that stuff. But from down here, I'm looking at Alaska Airlines up, so I'm looking at $800-900.
Oh my goodness! Just to Fairbanks?
It's crazy, yeah, man. It's most of the flights are between $350 to $400 one way, even though it's in state. So pretty much whatever I'm saving on in state is gone with the airplane miles, but it's still a lot less expensive than out of state. So
holy crap! I got to count my blessings that I live in Fairbanks.
Yeah, you're on the system. There's we got here, and we got elk. So if you get because it's all islands, if someone's got a boat and you can go, you can make it a little bit less expensive. But so we got a lot of animals down here. It's just adding a boat to the deal is adds to the logistics rather than just putting in a boat and floating down. Your river floats, you're doing a jet boat. It's a little different than having to play the tides. And, if there's a big storm coming in, you're going to be able to get across the strait or get across the inlet. So, it's different, but, it's fun. Just like you said, it's kind of a misery. And, so you don't live here for ultimate comfort. You live here for the adventure. So
100%. Yeah. Cause there are definitely good opportunities outside for work and everything else. But Alaska is it's awesome. For me, it's hard to think about living anywhere else.
No, yeah, it really is. I was up in Colorado this last weekend, and it's beautiful, and it's so much more open in Southeast Alaska. You're looking at just open terrain, and you can kind of see through the woods, and you just expect to see a big mule deer or an elk. But then you go back to the parking lot, and then you get back into town, and you're a couple hours from Denver and big cities and tourism and just people everywhere. Not that I don't like people, but it's nice to have that solitude and have it maintained. I come back into town in Ketchikan, there's 10,000 people here. It's pretty small. There's enough people to provide you everything that you need as far as There's entertainment and food and grocery store and this and that. It's not super rural, but you just don't have to compete with traffic day in, day out. You
yeah.
compete.
No
Nonsense.
kidding. I could see big city life definitely wearing on someone really quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Fairbanks has got 30,000?
Something like that.
And that's big by Alaska standards, but that's nothing compared to down there. That doesn't even get you a dot on a map down in California.
Yeah. I feel like Fairbanks is almost like in that perfect zone where it's like it's big enough to have most of the crap you want, but small enough to not have to deal with high rises and rush hour traffic all the time and, all the excessive crime rates or whatever. And being centrally located in a state, you can just get on the road and you can drive north up to the Brooks Range. You can drive south down towards Anchorage or Valdez. You can go east towards Tok and, you're out in the sticks in 10 minutes.
It just depends on what your tolerance is. People say they could never live in Fairbanks because it's so cold. It's really, really cold, but you also have the sunlight. It's not a warm sun. I've been up there for a couple of basketball tournaments, and it's super, super cold. But at least you see the sun. Southeast Alaska, it's much, much warmer, but it's usually gray and rainy.
Yeah.
Both of those seem like terrible options compared to someone who lives in California. Oh, we don't have to worry about the weather. Yeah, but you got to worry about traffic all the time. So what do you hate worse? Do you hate being cold worse than traffic, sitting in traffic all day, complaining about that? Do you hate rain more than traffic? And some people, they want to have the warm temperature, and that's fine by them, fine by me. Just whatever's the worst thing to you. Are you living in a place that is providing that or is an escape from that? And I would much rather deal with rain and gray with all the opportunities that living in Ketchikan provides than I would want having to commute an hour and a half in traffic or even an hour in traffic, or just when I get home being surrounded by people and by urban setting and I can't escape it without driving 2 or 3 hours. So, no place is perfect. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm definitely spoiled here. It takes me 10 minutes to get to work, if that. And if I hit a train and it takes me 5 extra minutes, that's like an inconvenience, So instead of my 10-minute commute, it's 15 minutes.
Mine's 13 miles, and it's the same every day because there's no lights along the way. So the only variable that could make it a little bit slower is if I happen to be behind a school bus, but I'm usually there before, or during the winter, of course, if you add in a little bit of snow or some black ice. But they do a good job of putting the antifreeze stuff down by 6 in the morning. So by the time I'm driving, that stuff's down there, and they got the ice melter out, so we're in pretty good shape. So
there you go.
It's nice. Well, anything else to add, man? We got a home football game tonight, so I'm going to head out to the field. I got my Gore-Tex rain gear because it's supposed to rain, because that's what it does in Ketchikan. But anything else you got to add, man? Really appreciate you staying with it and re-recording here.
Hey, crap happens, man. The only thing that I have to say is that if you want to go on a hunt or try something new, just go out and do it. Go ask someone for help, because people will help you. And the one thing that I've always heard is that, there's never been someone on their deathbed who says, I really wish I would not have went on that hunt. It's always the opposite.
All right, man. Thanks again. Really appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll talk again sometime.
Absolutely. Take care.